Hey, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well today. I am just heading back home from Southern California, and I wanted to really just take this time to talk about the teen killings that took place in Las Vegas. I believe it was in the Centennial area neighborhood. And basically what happened, and I don't want to explain what happened. It was just a bunch of low lifes. But before I begin, I'm in Prim Valley, Nevada, just right on the state line. And as you can see, there's barely any people because it's a Monday night, and activity has really n- been not here that great in the last several years. And I did a video about this area, and I actually worked for a firm that did a building project out here. But what I just want to talk about is that, look, we know what the symptom of the problem is, okay? We know that in a multiracial society, especially in a society where we have a large number of people who are committing these insane acts, these horrible and disgusting behaviors that really had little to do with the desire of trying to get more resources because they were neglected or they have to make ends meet. This just shows you that we have a problem with a group of people who are not committing behaviors that are pleasant, in addition to the fact that we have poor family planning. You know, children are not raised properly. And as a result, we need to make some serious changes to not just family structure, but how the races usually congregate. Because remember, we all know that there was a lot of double standard going along. Had this would have been in a reverse case. In other words, if the suspects were white, and the people who were hurt were non-white, particularly were black, the society would have been totally angry. They totally would have been upset about this. We would have seen just completely large numbers of folks who would have erupted as if we could have seen riots as a result. We could have seen harsher charges. We could have seen more negative reactions. We could have seen a lot more riots. Who knows? But the fact is that what we are really seeing here, believe it or not, is a society of double standards. We're seeing a society of literally the fact that people who are committing these acts, we're seeing all these red flags, we're seeing all these safety hazards, and what happens as a result, it proves that we really need to kind of separate in our own means, especially by the people who want to do so. Because if we, these people had the ability to live in a more monoracial, monoculture society, then the chance of this occurring would have not happened. Now, ironically, this retired police officer who was riding in his bike, which, by the way, these streets are really not designed for bicycles, I can tell you that. It really shows that not only that they're not safe, but they're the kinds of people who really, it just shows that it's not really safe to be around with. Their behaviors are reckless, it's really out of control. Now think about it. This cop retired from California. He moved out of California not just because of the lower, tax climate, cost of living, but he seemed to believe that our state, which I just entered, I just came back from California because I wanted to go see my family as I turned 31 years old. He wanted to live in a society that had more law and order. Well, apparently, when he came here, it proved otherwise. Now, he managed to live here for about 14 years or so, but apparently, even after all of that, lightning actually struck him pretty badly. That's just the thing you've got to keep in mind. So as a result, what we're really seeing here today is, see, this shows that this is what you have with the demographics that we have now. A large pool of certain types of people that are more likely to commit these heinous acts, larger amounts of crime, shows that we need, for our own safety, and because in terms of social compatibility, that we need to separate if we want to do so, if the people who want to live in more monoracial societies. Now the thing is that why in the world does Vegas have its demographics? Well, as you know, a lot of that has to do with gentrification of California. Basically, what's happened is that the high cost of living has encouraged a lot of them to get out of California, and instead of even moving to California like back in the day, they've decided to move to the Las Vegas area. And that has impacted the demographics. And in addition to the fact that you have a large number of immigrant populations, if you know what I'm talking about, who are definitely are more likely to commit larger acts of crime. They are more likely to be in gang-related activities. As you can see, that their societies that they come from, they have higher rates of murder. And last but not least, that because of our failure to learn the realities of race and their impacts and their probabilities that they bring up, the fact that these people are more likely to be raised in households that are not in good family structure. So these people, thanks to just how they are, they are less likely to be successful, knowledgeable enough to support a family, and in addition, the fact that they tend to have poor family planning, they are less likely to grow up in households where both parents are typically raising the children. And that likely means that your children are not likely going to grow up properly and are more likely to commit these heinous acts and are less likely to have good values. So what happens as a result? Well, the fact that we're not aware of these factors, the fact that we have a large group of these people, the probability of these consequences will continue to go up. And it's important to know that these factors into consideration, the racial and the family aspect of it, because as a result, we know that will our societies become safer? Because we know that the mother, from what I read, of the black woman, correct me if I'm wrong, she actually took the side of that perpetrator and says that the media was biased. And in fact, what's that guy who debated Jared Taylor of American Renaissance, Tariq Nasheed? They were talking about race and everything. He was defending, correct me if I'm wrong, the perpetrator. So what you really have here is just a lot of double standards, lack of accountability, and speaking of double standards, let's just imagine if the perpetrators were men and the victim were women. Now, just imagine the reactions, what would be. Or if the perpetrators were female and essentially the victim was actually male. And this is a society that cannot define gender. And in addition to the fact that how the media would cover it. Now, let's just imagine if the perpetrator, we don't even have to use white people, let's just say if the perpetrator was a Persian guy like me, okay? And the victim was black or Hispanic, and particularly Amerindian. And by the way, I saw the criminal arrest record of the Hispanic guy, and they counted him as white. Can you believe it? I mean, come on. And by the way, this is actually one of the reasons why, I think they should count MENA, people like me who are originated from the Middle East, and you might want to count Sicilians and certain Spaniards too, because it might even show that people like us have different rates of committing crime than particularly the people who originate from Northern Europe. But anyway, they counted him as Hispanic. It's just so insane. It's just so misleading. We need different kinds of data, although the data that we have, pretty much proves a good chunk of exactly what's going on. But we know these people, were not raised properly. We know that they're perpetrators. And you have to understand that if the perpetrator was a Persian guy like me or Asian, and if the victim was black, the media would treat us a lot more harsh than the other way around. So, in other words, well, actually, if the victim was Asian and the perpetrator was black, then they would try to blame it on white people. You have to understand that. And actually, just to go back, I remember there was this Persian young woman who was actually an escort, and they were in an Uber driver and she was actually with some blacks, and they did some physical attacks, took the cell phone and everything else. And it's just absolutely insane, and it's actually one of the reasons why people have problems with modern women. But they viewed that, see, and this is what they do, they cherry pick. They viewed that essentially as a white person, and I guess you can say Persians can be white. I mean, she had light colored skin, attacking an Asian person, even though he wasn't really Asian, he was South Asian. He wasn't like those Orientals who were stereotyped for pushing the pandemic and everything else. But anyway, you get my point, okay? And you have to understand that some non-whites are treated more harshly, are not as favoritized as others. Now, in case if you were wondering, we're actually passing the town of Jean, and pretty soon we're going to be passing the area that I'm planning to build my master plan development. But anyway, that's a long story. I'm just looking at the mileage tracker. It's 18 miles to St. Rose, 29 miles to Flamingo. So pretty much you can see exactly what's going on. And it's just horrible to see that the media didn't really cover it up. Now, it's a good thing that they got arrested, at least. And you might argue, well, putting them in prison for long periods of time doesn't really help, but there has to be some kind of accountability. These people were not grown in good environments. Now, I understand it's not entirely their fault, but nevertheless, you got to keep in mind that this is getting out of control. And this shows that we really need to separate. We don't feel safe with these people. We're not socially compatible. And just to tell you, to add insult to injury, this is one of the reasons why that we need to control the border. But it seems like they are not doing it because not only they just want more GDP growth, they want more power, they want to destabilize the society, they want more foot soldiers. I mean, the list goes on. They want to keep the birth rates low here while importing their folks to fill in the gaps. There's a lot of difference, but they want these crime incidents to occur to basically create the chaos that's going to lead to the result that they're basically looking for. Because as you know, you can argue what happened from those two Vegas teens as a result of our poor immigration policy. Now, it's likely, I don't think that perpetrator was an immigrant. I think that he was a son of two immigrants, and as a result, as you know, that when you don't control the border and so forth, when you bring people from areas that have higher crime rates, significantly more than the United States, well, you're likely going to get people who come from these cultures who typically are more aggressive in nature. And we'll talk about it another time, in terms of overall intelligence, testosterone level, you know blood testosterone is what I'm talking about. Muscle tissue, instant gratification, or something like that. I mean, I did an interview with what's his name, Sam Dixon, about this. It's a long story, but when you have these factors into consideration, when you have poor family planning, when you have a society where especially women are incentivized to sleep around with deadbeats, to essentially be irresponsible, well, then one of the things that ends up happening is that you get a lot of children who typically tend to be born out of wedlock, and as a result, children are not grown properly. And as you know, these perpetrators were probably more like to have children out of wedlock, to become baby daddies, and essentially the cycle just goes on, and a lot of innocent people are going to be at risk as a result, including any of us. And what happens as a result is that we end up having to pay more taxes. It's just a vicious cycle. It's absolutely sickening. And what happens as a result? Well, a lot of us will tend to have to keep living further and further away on the outskirts of the Las Vegas Valley. We're going to see more white flight. We're going to see probably more gated neighborhoods. And of course, the problem is we've got the BLM that owns so much of the land. But this gets to me to the heart of the other issue because, a lot of people have told me that they're not happy with the racial demographics, along with the fact that there's a lack of separation among the racial dynamics. In case if you were wondering, this is the typical sound of the freeways in Las Vegas. So basically, as a result, it's important to know that the black and white racial separation in Las Vegas is among the lowest in the United States. Because, I know that the Centennial area, as well as Summerlin and Henderson, are majority white areas. The problem is that their black and white separation is not so high. And what happens is that, we got some people talking about getting out of Vegas, and the question is, where would you go? Now, I'm going to be getting to that probably in another video or later in this video, but because of this lack of separation, we've seen really the less attractive crowd move here because of the high cost of California. Maybe it has to do with Chicago, the stadiums that have come in. You can argue a lot of different things, although some data has proven that the demographics have not really changed, and that imports more voters, it creates identity politics. There's all this, more and more people are going to keep moving further and further away. So it's just absolutely just getting out of hand. And we're going to have to bring to this topic that these people are not compatible to live with us. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I have good relations with every type of major racial group. I'm not trying to let everybody down. But there is a probability factor. It's kind of like, well, who is more likely to be better in engineering, urban planning, and architecture? Well, men do. Just like the majority of the people who work in my architectural firm are males. And then who's more likely to be better at interior design, along with other fields like fashion design? Women, okay? So there's a probability factor. Just like, people who are Iranian descent, Korean descent are more likely to do better in math than people who are Amerindian and Central African descent. It's very simple to understand. Now, there can be definitely, and I wanted to respond to this guy. I mean, I don't know, you might as well go to Boulder City. I don't know about North Dakota. I mean, if you can handle the cold, I guess I could handle it. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's just a factor. And we have to bring these issues into consideration. And we need to bring these topics up into local meetings. I think there's going to be a school board meeting very, very soon. I'm going to be talking about the issues of multiculturalism because it's just a very, very important subject. Now, this leads me to the other point, because in the last decade or so, I have been working on an ambitious goal to build neighborhoods on the outskirts of the Las Vegas area. And you can see here, I'm near the Sloan area, and I'm looking at these areas in these valleys and so forth. And you can see this large glow way far ahead on the sky. This is the Las Vegas Valley. As a result, I've been working on this goal. I've been bringing up ideas, criticizing the status quo, working on my investments. You can look at my financial predictions. I've been talking about, the corruption in this town, how we need to really fight back and look at things like breaking up the county and so forth. But I'm really starting to come to this point of view that these aren't just really Vegas problems. These are really domestic problems. And, the more I think about it is, yeah, and I do think there should be more whites who are willing to retreat and fight back. Absolutely. But I don't think it's just that. I think that more people like us, and this is, we're hearing retirees wanting to flee. People are working remotely. They want to, live a lower cost of life, a saner culture, a different vibe of people and culture. And I've been thinking about doing that because, yes, I'm experiencing a lot of success. But then again, is my happiness is where it needs to be? Am I dealing with quality of people? Am I living and being around with other human beings that, would respect me, would treat me well? And is this good for my health? Am I living in a safe society? Am I living in a saner culture? Or I'm living in a society that's really just going downhill, and before I know it, this quicksand is just going to suck all of us up, even people who are very successful, even people who are very healthy. And this is why I'm thinking about I should probably consider not just, I don't know about leaving Las Vegas, but even, and I'm not doing this now, or it's just probably like 3 to 5 years from now, probably moving out of the country. Now, countries I've thought about going to is probably, I don't know about Brazil, but maybe somewhere like, I've heard good things about Bolivia, Colombia. I do speak Spanish a good amount. I speak Spanish, English, obviously, as well as Persian. I just can't read and write in Persian except for numbers. I'm bilingual, just to let you know. So I know 3 languages, but I've thought about going to Costa Rica as well as Spain because it's ironic that, America compared to, and I spoke to my Spanish teacher from my sophomore year of high school. And she was really excited to hear from me. She remembered a lot about me. And she told me, she remembered who I was and told me, yeah, it's time for you, given the cultural differences, given the way things are in the climate. And yes, I do speak Persian, I do speak Farsi, and I can speak Farsi hopefully in another video. The thing is, they recommend, along with some of my other friends, a woman who runs a entertainment business out here in Las Vegas, has a second home in Costa Mesa, or excuse me, Newport Beach. I stayed over recently by the beach, and she actually had a meeting with Donald Trump just weeks before the last election. And she's even thinking about going to Spain, and they're recommending that I should consider moving to Spain. And I've heard a lot of good things about people who've moved to Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, just amazing culture. And yeah, I'm just reading this right now. Costa Rica is probably better than Spain. And you're probably right. The climate is there pretty decent as well. The cost of living, the people, and everything. And, it's not just like the culture and everything. I've heard a lot of good things about dating and in terms of relationships, starting a family. They don't have these infidelity issues, divorce, and all the other hassle that comes with it. They just don't have the kind of the things they like in men in this part of the world is quite different than how it is in other parts of the world. Like, you know, the N word in Persian. I don't think we really have that, although we do have black people in Iran. They're about 1% of the population, and they're primarily in the southern part of Iran, and they influenced a lot in our culture, music, and sports. And, it's funny because they don't perform very well in a lot of categories, just like the blacks in Arab countries. And actually, we had them as slaves before you Europeans did, and we ended it after you guys did it. By the way, I don't think we did this, but the Arabs, they actually castrated many of them. It's funny how a lot of people don't know this, but at that same high school that I spoke to my Spanish teacher, he said about how the Arabs had the black slaves, but actually, there's a Persian term. It says negaronam, which, I kind of said the N word. It's pretty much like I'm really cautious about you. I don't know if YouTube wants to really take down what I just said, but it sounds like the N-word, negat on, but it's actually, I'm speaking in Farsi. So, hey, YouTube, if you want to take down this video because you thought I was using the N-word, go ahead. But nevertheless, you're discriminating against a foreign language. Anyway, I'm in the Las Vegas Valley. Wow. I got to tell you something, folks. Like, you can complain about Las Vegas, but wow, look at how clean the freeways are. Look at how good condition the freeways are. Folks, Vegas has issues, but it doesn't have a lot of the problems California has. The cost of living, it may not be as great as other countries. I can still find, decent apartments for under $1,000. I can still get a decent paying job out here. It's not as bad. I mean, we can complain about it, we can criticize it, but still, a lot of people argue living out here is still better than much of the world. But nevertheless, I'm thinking about it. I mean, look, yeah, there are problems here. Look at these housing here. It's just ridiculous, folks. It's just shameful. Now, you might argue, well, it's they have to make these fast paced, and this is a desert. A lot of desert cities look like this. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of problems with the building that's going on. However, at least in America, we have the ability to fight back. We still have our free speech, and you can argue, they try to push us around, but nevertheless, we saw what happened in the last 3 years, the lockdowns and mandates. We weren't treated as harshly as we were in Canada and Australia. Okay, and even this state, we weren't treated as harshly as many other states across the country. Yeah, we do have some benefits out here. There's absolutely no question about it. But nevertheless, I just have to say, folks, I'm thinking about moving to another country because there's just so many things about that's going on. I feel like so many things are going downhill, even though the awakening is growing, even though you can argue that 2024 is going to change everything. But folks, sometimes if I was president, it's just the people. And it's not like I think the people are just stupid. It's just that the people here are really naive. I think a lot of people get it. The issue is, it's just that the people really don't have balls. Oh, look, you got Rob Schneider here in the M Resort. That's pretty cool. You got the South Point out here. They still got some good deals. But nevertheless, it's just like, look, is this the kind of environment you want to surround yourself in? Think about it. Look at these kinds of places we live in. You can go to other parts of the country, you look at their cities, you look at their culture, and a lot of people are arguing that, well, dating and starting a family and everything is much better in this part of the world. People argue just meeting new people is much different. Like, how would you meet people in this area? Like, what would you do? Like, I mean, okay, you can probably just sit around a bar. Maybe you can start a conversation with an employee, make some friends and what have you. It is possible. I've talked to strangers in this South Point hotel, and, they weren't quality people. I mean, these were like a couple of women who had like lots of tattoos, even in their chest. I mean, so, it is possible. But nevertheless, yeah, okay, I'm reading the comments. Trump is not going to do anything. Look, I don't know, man. It's just like, folks, even if he wins, it's just, in a lot of ways, America has just been so damaged. I don't even know if we can get this country back, folks. I mean, look at this. Look at this dirty sign. Look who they named the goddamn airport after. It's just absolutely ridiculous, folks. It's unbelievable. And see, that's the thing. It just shows that the problem is the people did not really have the balls or anything to fight back and stand up to this crap. Unbelievable. And yet here we are, we just complain, but there's not much action that's going on. I mean, I've done a lot of difference. I've, spoken out. I've done a lot of reporting. I don't know if anybody has done so much in terms of making a difference than I have in regards to what's going on. And yeah, a lot of people are arguing it's time to probably head out of the country. And there's, I just read some comments. Yeah, maybe it's time to move to Ireland. Definitely. I've heard good things about those countries. Frankly, I've heard that their economies are way better than, obviously, many parts of Europe. I know the economy in Spain has plenty and plenty of issues, and it's just, I guess it's really good if you can just, somebody like me who cashes his assets out of the stock market, at the same time actually have a work at home job so he can live very comfortably. And we look at this country. It's just one financialized, credit ridden, consumerist dictatorship. This is where we're living in. Massive credit cards, massive debt. And again, I don't have these problems. I mean, frankly, the only loan I really have is just this car. Like, what else am I supposed to do? I could have paid off the car right away, but I want to make sure that more of my assets, my savings goes to the stock market. And I'm paying my car bills on time. It's not that bad. Let's just be honest here. But you have all these people with ridiculous debt. It's just a financialized society. They speculate. They have all these oligarchies. It's just ridiculous. And look, you look at this skyline. We're looking at the strip. You can argue it's pretty incredible. A lot of Europeans and everybody around the world would like to look at it. Absolutely. But it's just an absolute disaster. You know, what our society has come. And you have to ask yourself, well, then why do all these immigrants come here? Like, we have all these migrants, whatever, illegals, whatever you want to call it, that are working in these places. Well, the answer to this is they're not coming here mainly for the quality of life. They're not coming here mainly because they really like the culture. They come here for one, obviously, a lot of them get subsidies and their lifestyle gets promoted, but they just come here for the dollars. When you see all these people from Ethiopia, Philippines, Guatemala, Mexico, they come here because they can earn those dollars, they can save it up, and they can basically send the money abroad. And in addition to the fact, by the way, they're doing a lot of road construction here. At least they do a better job here than California. Oh God, it's so terrible. At least the freeways in San Diego were not so bad because I was there just recently in Jamul. They had an Indian casino, and it was a lot more packed than Vegas. And I don't blame them. It's just Vegas is really not what it used to be. And I think the odds of those casinos are even better too. I think it's actually a good thing a tribe bought out the Palms. But anyway, you can just see that it's really going downhill. And I understand you don't like a lot of these non-Europeans that are in America. And by the way, if you don't like me because I'm Persian, I'm in this country, that's fine. You can give me criticism. You don't like looking at me, you don't like my culture, you don't like my language. You're asking me to come to Ireland. I don't know about that, man. I mean, Ireland is pretty cool and stuff. I'm just not crazy about its climate. The climate is not that bad. The climate is pretty comparable to, I don't know, Seattle or something, although it doesn't get that much rain. Anyway, it's okay you don't like these non-European types in this country. And that's good, the fact that you don't like them. You're supposed to not like them, because if you didn't, then you would have been able to preserve your culture, your heritage, your way of life. You guys are the main responsible folks that many people want to come here, that we've been able to build this wealth and success and everything else. Absolutely. And we're not going to allow a bunch of non-whites to just take it over, make your places unsafe, uncomfortable, full of hassle and everything. I mean, look at this, $5.49. It's ironic. I was at the Costco in California, and I even paid less than that. So just to let you know, it's not really the taxes that's making these gas prices go up so high. A lot of this is just, I think it's just refinery manipulation and a lot of other things. But, refinery maintenance, it's a joke, folks. And I'm not against cars or anything. But you see, because we have this lifestyle, these cities where you have to drive everywhere, you're so isolated and everything, they can just keep raising the prices and there's not much of any consequence. That's the sad, sad truth. In other countries that you're able to get around a lot better, you don't have these problems. By the way, these places were built because of codes and regulations. This was not built by the free market. These wide routes you see and everything, it's, oh wow, these people didn't even go. People here just don't even know how to drive. Like they just could have stopped before, so then we would have had less time to wait in the traffic light. Unbelievable. So anyway, I really like the bright lights out here. It's really cool. Just to let you know. But I think a lot of people really just, man, they're really seeing this country for what it is. And I think the really interesting part is that it's not really the standard of living, because we measure so much based on monetary success. And by the way, I respect your comments that you made about me and my ethnic heritage, but it's just, folks, people are realizing that more money doesn't equate to a higher quality of life, a better chunk of people. Yeah. And by the way, my aunt who's visiting from Tehran, she has blue eyes and she has very light skin. And yeah, yeah, and you're talking about the death penalty, and I absolutely don't blame you, folks. I really don't. You know, it makes you think why we did what we did to the you know what. I'm not going to go further than that, because we wanted to show these people that there are consequences for these lewd, unnecessary, horrible behaviors. It's just absolutely unacceptable about what's going on. I mean, gas is not so bad. It's like 4.87. I mean, I couldn't find anything that was under $5 in California. It was just absolutely ridiculous, folks. But just let's look at it. I mean, our society is breaking apart. It really is. And I don't even think these people were doing these kinds of things back in the day. I don't remember people doing this kind of lewd, insane behavior like they once did. Since when were you seeing this kind of crap? I don't remember any of this stuff, folks. I really don't. And I can just tell you that, if this is just going to keep going on, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this crazy behavior. And unfortunately, if we would have actually did harsher punishments on them, there would have been mass media coverage, which I will have to point out before I go. That's the really heart of the problem, is that we have a media that's totally biased. Now, again, the Review Journal, from what I've heard, they actually, got the footage, but the titles and everything, it wasn't all that good. That's the thing. So you have to understand that's the media, and I've been saying this for probably over a decade now, it's the number one enemy of the American people. And it's no accident why our country is the shape that we are now. It's just unbelievable. I can't believe this. It's just, I mean, how do we address this problem? What can we do? I guess that's really the only solution, is we're just going to have to self-separate. That's what we're going to have to do. But then again, as they have before in parts of the north central, midwestern part of the country, we know that a lot of things they like to do is they like to import more migrants in the areas that, well, basically, that are not diverse enough. You look at the Hmong in Wisconsin, you look at the Somalis in Minnesota and in Maine. It's ridiculous to see what's happened. You might argue that with the Arabs in Michigan, although you can argue that, now they're actually sort of helping our cause because of you know, the non-hetero agenda that they're trying to push. But anyway, I got to get going. You guys let me know what you think. It was a really great chatting with you. Yeah, you don't like the ghettos. I mean, You know, I just believe, look, the problem is our culture is just so ghetto right now. I just don't know what to tell you folks. It's just you look at the way people talk and you look at the way the music and everything. It's just the substance have come down, basically. You look at the way people dress. It's just so out of hand. I just cannot believe this. It's a sad situation that we're living in. And the problem is you just can't fit in. And after that, you just feel kind of alone and isolated. And you're just like, you know what? I want to just get out of this country for good. And there's just no question about it. But anyway, folks, you guys let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much. Great pleasure. I hope to talk to you very, very soon.